Welcome to the Shared Practices podcast. We are on season 6 on growth, and we have the unique privilege of talking with two former Army dentists. I didn't realize this till right before the call. Dr. Dustin Dodds and Dr. Emily Dodds from Long Beach, Florida. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
We're on the West Coast, actually. It's California.
Oh, Long Beach. That's not Florida. That's California. All right, we're not redoing the intro. We're going to roll with it. So all I knew was that it was like coastal and warmer than Indiana, and I was just jealous. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Are you in Indiana?
Yeah, I am. I'm in Indianapolis, Brownsburg, kind of west side of Indianapolis. And I don't know, Long Beach, everyone knows Long Beach is California. That's okay. I'm an idiot. I'll take it.
I'm from Indiana originally, so that's interesting. I grew up in Crown Point, and I went to Purdue for my undergrad, and then East Coast and West Coast, and I haven't been back to the Midwest much since, other than the Army time.
Nice. Okay, so let's start with that then. So where did you go to dental school? We'll start with Emily, and I think maybe that's where you guys connected. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we went to Tufts in Boston, and we met and started dating our first year of dental school there.
Awesome. And Dustin, where did you go to undergrad before dental school?
I got my bachelor's from UCLA. I grew up in Southern California, so that's pretty much how we ended up back out here. But,
nice.
Yeah.
So both HPSB Army?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's her fault. But I joined because it was mostly out of convenience at that point. So
yeah, I took the HPSB scholarship once I got accepted to dental school. I took the HPSB before my first year at Tufts, and then we met, like I said, first year. We were engaged second year and got married between our third and fourth year. So once I think he realized, I'm going to be following her around doing this anyway, so I should probably maybe get some of the financial benefits from that as well. So then he joined halfway through after second year, and then we were both on board for the Army life.
That's awesome. So did they give you a 2-year HPSB scholarship, Dustin?
No, it's the minimum's 4. You have to do it. But there was like a signing bonus that I got a little bit of extra money for. Cool. And I think if I hadn't done the AEGD like 1-year residency with the Army, I don't think I would have been required to do all 4 years. I can't remember exactly what the specifics were on it, but I think she was going to be in for 4 or 5 anyway, so that's what it was. Yeah. We paid. Yeah, it paid for part of our wedding was that signing bonus.
There you go. Yeah. Nice. Okay, cool. So, did you guys get stationed at the same places in the Army, or did you guys have to do some time apart?
Yeah, we were together the whole time, which we felt really fortunate about. We did a 1-year AEGD and then together, and then we were stationed. That was at Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington State, and then we got stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky for our other 4 years, and we were together the whole time. There were a couple of possible. We both thought we were going to deploy at one point or at a couple different points where we would have been separated, obviously, but both of our deployments didn't end up happening. So we were together the whole time.
Cool. No, that's really cool. I feel like the military makes a lot of accommodations for dual military couples. And it sounds like you guys did that the right way. That's awesome. So how far after your Army commitment was it before you started looking for practices to buy in California, not Florida? And like when, were you kind of transitioning out of the Army and looking at that point, or were you still kind of looking for a normal job? Dustin, we'll start with you.
We had thought that we were going to take over for the family practice that I went to as a kid. The dentist was a family friend, friends of our neighbors my aunt and uncle, and we'd known them forever. And a long story short, it just didn't really work out very well. So,
Sure.
and that's kind of the trend with those sorts of situations, unfortunately.
Yep.
But so we moved out here after the Army thinking that that's what we were going to do. We went to work there part-time and started working at other practices part-time as well, just as associates.
A lot of them.
Yeah, I think at one point between the two of us, we worked at like 7 or 8 different offices throughout the week. So
wow, that is impressively large quantity of practices.
Yeah, so we just got frustrated with the whole situation, and then they had kind of said that they were going to have to cut our hours back even more as we were getting up to about a year of working for them and stuff like that. So we started shopping then, basically. And he didn't seem like he was planning on retiring as soon as we thought he was going to. So it was bad timing, really.
That seems to be, unfortunately, just way too common of a story of, oh yeah, there'll be a potential to buy me out, and then a year goes, and then another year, and all of a sudden it's like, well, no, why would I retire? You guys are doing all the work.
Right.
Frustrating situation. Okay, so how did you guys find this practice to acquire? Because you're in an acquisition a few years in. It looks like it's a story from the laugh that I'm getting already here.
Kind of.
I was sitting in that office, writing notes or waiting for a patient or something like that, and I was flipping through the Dental Trader. I don't know if you have that publication out there in Indiana, but it's like the penny saver, that sort of thing. Throw away, you get it in the mail once a month. It's mostly like classified listings of equipment, and but all the practice brokers locally have ads in them. And this guy in particular that had the listing, the broker didn't have a whole lot of like presence in our area. He's more like north of LA, kind of out of our out of the South Bay or south of LA. And so when you Google search practices for sale in our neighborhood, his listings wouldn't show up. So randomly, I found it in this Dental Trader magazine and called immediately because I knew exactly where the office was, and knew that at the very least it was in a good neighborhood, because basically it was my backyard growing up. My grandmother lived like a block and a half or less than a mile from where our office is.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So what year was this that you guys bought this practice?
2016.
2016. Okay. So at this point, was this an office that both of you could come practice in, or was this an office where you were going to need to grow that office and to have room for both of you?
So when we started, it was kind of an in and out transition with the owner. We started and he was done. There was no overlap or anything. And so we both went in that first day, and there was not a whole lot to do. I think we each saw a couple of patients maybe, but we knew he enjoyed a leisurely schedule, I would say. He liked to golf, he liked to practice, but it was not a stressful, I don't want to say it wasn't stressful, it may have been, but he was easing into retirement. Sure. And so it was not something that was going to be able to support both of us at the time. So I still worked for a little while at the practice we didn't purchase for several months, even when we purchased our practice, which was awkward to say the least. And
so
then
I was there part of it as well. I quit there earlier than you did for other reasons.
Yes, I hung on for a while because I needed another job still. And then I worked at another practice a day a week. So I was still working at a couple other places, and I was 2 days a week at our own practice initially.
Okay. And how many ops were there at the practice that you guys bought?
5.
5 ops. Okay.
And 4 that were mostly functional, and 1 not so much. But
yeah. Yeah.
I feel like that's way too often the case in these older practices where you're just like, well, that's the neglected op when we just like steal parts from that op. And
Yeah.
Well, fortunately
We
now
never really.
now it's the one that everybody wants to work in. So it's
Yeah.
changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 180 there. So
Yeah.
you guys knew at this point that you were going to have to grow this practice if it was going to support you both.
Mhm.
At that time, what was your long-term goal in terms of you both being there or alternating days? You know, sometimes husband and wife couples, they like to say, okay, let's build this up so that one of us can be there every day of the week, but we're not necessarily both there every day of the week. Or were you guys thinking we want to be at this office full-time together? Dustin, what was your plan at that point in time?
I mean, I think our plan was always to um, have one of us there full time, and most likely me, so that she had free time to spend more time with her kids and stuff like that. The That's kind of how it played out eventually. Once we were only practicing there, and full time for me was 4 days a week, and sometimes on Fridays. So and then she was there 3 days. Everything with COVID has kind of made the schedule a lot different. And she's also working on her master's in public health, so she has some days where she's out doing. She's not just hanging out with the kids. She's doing a lot more work than just clinical dentistry and everything too. So,
Okay.
But that was always the goal, was to have our own practice so that she could make her own hours, and we could both be there when we wanted to be, basically, as much as we wanted to be, that sort of thing. But
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Well, that's super exciting on the Masters of Public Health. What are some of your goals with that, with the degree there?
Good question. What are my goals with that? I don't have any specific. I don't know where this is going to take me, I guess, is what I'm saying. I had educational benefits through the military still, the post 9/11 GI Bill educational benefits, and I just couldn't see those go to waste. I wanted to use them for something, and I'm have always been interested in public health, and kind of felt like at some point in my career, I want to have an impact beyond just in my specific community with my patient base. I want to do something to a greater effect, whether it be get involved with policy or organized dentistry, whether it be something like mission trips or community outreach, just something like that. So I thought it was a good place to start with that. I'm also very interested in at some point getting into the education aspect of dentistry, and I thought it might be something just a little to set me apart possibly from other dentists who want to get involved with teaching at some point.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So now we kind of know, we know the end point. We know where you guys started in this practice. Let's talk about the in between of how did you what were the first things you did? You know, like I can imagine that it might have been a little bit of a scary transition. Maybe not. Maybe you guys knew that you were going to crush it and do really well. But what were the things that you were worried about and were thinking about trying and grow this practice? And I feel like there's a lot of hypotheticals in your head. You're like, when I own my own practice, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And then you get in and you try some of those things. It doesn't go the exact way that you thought it would. So Dustin, can you think of any examples of either your thoughts and feelings at that time or your plans or things that didn't work growing your practice?
So when we walked into the practice that we took over, they didn't even have a computer at the front desk.
Oh,
So no digital x-rays, no computers anywhere in the practice, except for connected with no internet access to a like 10-year-old digital panoramic machine. So
there was one electronic in the entire office.
Yeah, basically. There was a typewriter at the front desk to submit dental claims. They mailed everything in. There are handwritten ledgers for billing patients and everything. So it was a lot like doing a startup, but we had 2,000 patients already, that sort of thing. So the goal obviously was to update everything. and we did that, immediately. Computers in every operatory, obviously practice management software at the front desk. We did inherit a good or an excellent team from the previous dentist as well, and they took it mostly in stride. So it was interesting. But yeah, the main goal up front was to modernize things, and that's basically what we've been doing ever since. And I think that's a huge part of the growth of our practice is just that we're technologically advanced, or a lot more so than we used to be.
You're cutting edge now, whereas before you were kind of in the Stone Age.
We're getting there, at least, yeah.
Nice. Did that, Emily? I don't know if you remember that phase. I feel like buying a practice. So I've closed on a practice 2 months ago, and I am constantly buying things. Like I've bought CPCTs, I've bought computers that I've had to update. At least I had computers to start off with, and I've only had to buy certain ones instead of all of them. Was that difficult going into, you bought the practice and now you're just kind of like reinvest, or was that more like, no, this is what we're doing and we're excited about it?
We may have different answers to this. I don't know, but I was not stressed about buying the computers or the digital x-rays or the software. I mean, that was exciting, I think, to me at the time. It was like, this practice that we found, it was our dream location, and you could tell it had so much potential. We just fell in love with the potential of the practice, even though it looked so old and not our style. It was like we were just so anxious to make it our own. So that was exciting, and luckily Dustin is great with tech, so he just did everything, and I felt great about it. It was more exciting than a stressful thing for me. Now he may say different.
It was, fortunately we had like a little bit of money from our lender, from the acquisition loan, to update those things. They were able, we were able to secure that sort of funding and everything. It wasn't as much as we would have wanted to like completely redo everything as soon as we walked in the door. So it did take us a couple of years to actually like renovate the space, take it from what looked like maybe 1995 to 2020, or 20, I guess it was 2018 or something like that when we actually did it. But
that was kind of the plan too, as well.
I think if we had done that all immediately, it probably would have scared some people away and that sort of thing. So
we were trying to not change too much too quickly. Our staff was already maybe a little bit, maybe more, but they seemed a little overwhelmed by the changes because, one of our hygienists had been a hygienist there at that point for 37 years, more. Dustin's saying more.
Like
her whole career.
When we took over. Yeah.
Her whole career. Our front desk, there's just one team member at the front desk who had worked there for decades. This is a huge change for these people who've been doing this their whole career. So we were trying to make changes slowly, and then also just the patients. It had a very established patient base, and we didn't want people to walk in and say, who are these people? Why does everything look different? They would be out of their comfort zone. So I think as far as changing, we upgraded the technology, but as far as the aesthetics of the practice, for financial reasons and just for, I think, what we thought would work out best, we waited a couple years and then completely renovated the practice, which people, once, they got used to us, and then they were excited about the renovation too, because it wasn't all new all at the same time. So we didn't lose anybody along the way. Well, I don't want to say we didn't lose anybody, but we didn't lose anybody just because we changed, the look of the practice. They already, were getting used to the changes.
Nice. Okay, so immediate priority was updating technology. Long term, it was like, okay, let's do the facelift renovations. how did you start ramping up marketing? Because I'm assuming this previous dentist did not heavily market anywhere in any way, shape, or form. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. So Dustin, what were your first thoughts on marketing?
So immediately we knew that we needed to get at least some sort of online presence. The first day before we even took over, maybe we were already starting a Facebook page and everything, right? So the our initial website, we went through kind of a bigger corporate outfit I won't mention because we cut ties with them a long time ago. It's water under the bridge, but it wasn't doing us any favors. We had a website with our name on it and our information and everything like that, but it wasn't really doing anything for us.
Where were they based out of, if you're allowed to even say that?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't remember where they're at. I think it was California somewhere though. Oh yes, it was. Yeah, they're not that far from us, honestly.
Okay.
But,
Cool.
We were paying them. We felt we were paying them a decent amount, and they weren't, managing our site, they were supposed to be managing our site updates, all that, and we felt like we weren't really getting anything back from that.
We were supposed to be, they were supposed to be optimizing SEO and or doing that sort of stuff for us, and we saw a zero change. We rarely heard anybody say they found us on Google or any of that sort of stuff, and obviously some of that takes time, but we had just stopped getting like our weekly reports or monthly reports from them and everything. There's like we fell off their radar somehow, and we knew it was time to change things. But that was we had had a practice acquisition consultant that we were working with initially that helped us kind of get the ball rolling. He did great. It was we were happy to have him help us like actually acquire the practice, but he wanted to stay on to kind of help us do marketing and do all that sort of stuff, and his suggestions were not helping either, so we cut ties with him as well. But
and that's great to hear. Like, and like you don't want to throw people under the bus, but at the same time, it's like you see the results pretty quick. You see, it's like, either the suggestion is just bad, or you follow the suggestion and you see that like, okay, this isn't working. Right. And at some point you just got to move on.
And all that really was with, as far as the marketing side of things, was that he had some sort of relationship where they offered a discount to have this thing set up, and then it just never really went anywhere beyond that. So,
Emily, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that was an interesting learning experience. I think that was one of the major things that we learned in the initial, what did we keep them for a year, maybe? The initial year of owning the practice is that, we, like Dustin said,
almost, yeah. It was almost.
We used them for the practice. We used them for the practice acquisition, which was extremely beneficial to us because we needed help through that process. And I think that his services were well worth it for that. The consultant part, I think we held on to him almost like a safety blanket. Like, well, we don't know what we're doing, so he's going to help us, and we need him. So we have to keep paying him what we thought and felt like was a lot monthly, but we can't do this without him because we've never done this before. So we held on to him a lot longer. And honestly, I don't think we needed him in that role at all, because I think he just gave us just enough little tidbits here and there that were maybe kind of helpful, but not enough for the services that we were paying for. He just kind of kept us at arm's length because I think that's how his business works. New dentists who are buying practice to, he convinced us, oh, well, I'm going to help you and you're going to need me and this. And so I think that was it took a little bit of a leap of faith for us to say, I think we can do this without him. I don't know that we really need him. And when we did that, that's kind of when things really started ramping up, is when we decided to kind of take things into our own hands and do our own research and find out what was going to work for us.
Cool. No, that's exciting. And that's a leap of faith. And it's also, unfortunately, sometimes companies can get lazy when they've got you on a retention model where it's like, they're getting your money every month, and they get the same amount of money whether they do a lot or they do a little. And you want them doing more than what you're paying, and they want to be doing less than what you're paying.
Yeah.
And eventually it doesn't work out. So what are some of these ideas? What did you guys do once you kind of cut loose? New website company, no consultant, you're free to do what you want. Dustin, what were some of your initial moves and thoughts? And then we'll hear kind of what Emily was thinking about at that time.
So we knew that wasn't specifically the website and marketing company wasn't working for us. We wanted to look for somebody that was going to kind of set us apart. I mean, obviously, some of those bigger companies that create those websites for dentists, specifically, they all look the same. Everything is a cookie cutter sort of thing. You can scroll, or before you even get to the bottom of the page, that one belongs to that company. It's pretty easy to figure that sort of stuff out.
There's the photography, there's the fonts, there's the colors.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think really more Emily took it on herself to start shopping for more, for lack of a better word, like boutique sort of marketing agencies. And sure. We, went through meetings and demos and stuff like that with several, and finally found one that we were really happy with, and the price point was right, because there were definitely some out there that were astronomically expensive and everything too, and they weren't necessarily specifically dental or medical marketing companies. They were just marketing in general, but we found one that we liked, and they've been amazing, and we've gotten to know the owners pretty well and stuff like that as well, and I think we just hit it off really well with the Wonderist once we found them. But Emily can kind of...
Cool. Emily, tell us about that.
Yeah, like Dustin said, met a lot of people, and also at the time we were wanting to rebrand. That was part of our rebuilding the website. We were also renovating. We were kind of trying to reinvent our office and make it more representative of who we are as practitioners and as people, all at the same time. So we were having redesigning. We have a neighbor who's a graphic designer who really kind of understands our aesthetic, and because we live in a neighborhood of mid-century modern homes, and our office is also a little bit of a mid-century modern vibe. And so she lives in this neighborhood and kind of knows our style. So we had her working on new logo for us. And so all of this was kind of happening around the same time. But when I met, we actually met Laura Maley, who is one of the co-owners of the Wonderist. She met us at a local dental convention here. She drove up from San Diego. This was before, I think it's funny now, because this is before Wonderist had a booth. Now they have their booth and their swag and all this at the conventions. And It was just her and a couple of girls and her laptop. And she sat down with us outside on a bench with her laptop and, talked to us. And I just felt, I felt a connection with her. And I just felt like she was similar personality, her and her husband, to us. And I thought, I had a good feeling about it. I thought we were really gonna hit it off, and that transformed our practice. Their services and their website, and we've seen, since we started using them, the growth's been crazy. I just looked at the end of the month. Last month we had 52 new patients last month. And that's a little high for us, but we've seen a ton of growth since we started using them.
Do you remember what your numbers were when you first acquired the practice in terms of like new patients per month?
Yeah, like 4 or 5. Maybe. Yeah.
And this is a fairly competitive market. Would you say that, like,
extremely so.
Long Beach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Extremely competitive. Yeah.
So it's like when you're the only dentist in a county in rural America versus you're in Long Beach and there's plenty of retired dentists everywhere. 50 new patients a month is huge. Okay, so in terms of, you rebranded, built a new website, redesigned the office, what channels via Wonderist have been the most successful for you guys in terms of Google Ads, or have you done any print? Have you done Facebook ads? What are the things that you've done with them that have been successful?
So, we've had them do the SEO optimization, obviously, in our site and all that. When we first started with them, we were doing Google ads, we were doing Facebook ads, kind of all of those things, because we thought, let's just see, maybe that's what we need to get a lot of growth. And then COVID happened. And so I was never going to cut ties with them because I wanted to support their business as well, because I knew it was hard for them as well. So we kept our services going the whole time, but we kind of cut the ads and the extra expenses to what would work for us and also be able to support their business. And we actually haven't turned those on yet. We haven't been doing the Google ads or the Facebook or any of the extra stuff. And Dustin and I were just talking about it last night. I was telling him, we had 52 new patients last month and we're not doing any of those things. And he's like, well, how many would we have if we were?
What happens
and I was
if we start pay-per-click again? Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
But you can, month to month, as far as the SEO side of things goes, I follow the Google Analytics. I think it's a monthly report that we receive. The organic search numbers have skyrocketed, and it's only continued to improve even through COVID and everything. So I think that's been the biggest thing for us, more than paid advertising and stuff like that. It's just them working diligently to get us to the top of that Google search, basically. So,
and you guys are on page 1. Like, I just Googled Long Beach dentist and I found you. I mean, you're not the top of page 1, but now I want to know how many.
the ones who are might actually be in our building with us too. So we have there are 4 other offices in our building, but it took. I mean, we were like page 8 before we transitioned to them to their services.
And it's been a slow build.
This is the course of at least like 3.5 years or so at this point. So.
SEO is a long game, and you have to be strategic about what you're doing, do it right, and do it for a long period of time. But it eventually pays off to the point where you're not having to just pour money on the fire of being the fighting in that ad space that's very expensive on a pay-per-click basis. And I just looked it up. There's about, I don't know, based on this number that Google's throwing at me right now, is about 1,300 dentists in Long Beach. So 1,300 people.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible. Long Beach it's a big city that nobody really realizes as big as it is. I think they say it bigger population wise, or at least landmass wise, than like Seattle. So it's not small. It's dwarfed by LA. We border LA. So, but yeah, it's a big town. But there's a lot of dentists here. You see it at every street corner. So that's not surprising. But
it's amazing to me that out of 1,300, and that probably includes specialists. I don't know where
so,
Google is. Yeah. But the fact that you guys are on page 1 is pretty amazing. So, not currently doing Facebook ads, not currently doing Google ads, still pulling in 50 new patients a month. Are there any other arms of marketing that you experienced or that you experimented with in terms of radio ads, TV ads, print ads, all these other things, or has it all been digital? Emily?
We did, I can't even remember what it was. It was a print ad. Every once in a while we get somebody who comes in the office from a local publication, or they're going to have little pamphlets at the grocery store, something, who sits down with us. And initially, I would say maybe a couple of years ago, those things are so tempting, because when you're a new practice owner, you're thinking, you just don't know what's going to help and what's not going to help. And they're making it sound very appealing, and your picture is going to be on there, and it's going to pull people in from Whole Foods. I feel like that's the one that got us.
That's what it was. Yeah, it was a brand new, they were renovating the Whole Foods that's right down the street from our office. And but this happened like 2 months before COVID is when the ad actually went out. So it's,
Yeah.
I don't even know what happened with it, honestly. We paid for it, and who knows if they even had those, if they were able to hand those things out at a grocery store right now, because nobody's, grabbing something
No.
off of a shelf and taking it home with them anymore. So
no, I
I
doubt
think
it. We paid for that, and it never
that
happened.
was a loss, yeah. So we don't. That's the only one that we actually like pulled the trigger on, and it was shortly before everything went to crap. So,
Sure.
And I would not do it again.
who knows if it would have been helpful or if it
well,
wouldn't at all. But we don't have any sort of
Evidence one way or the
on
other.
the ROI on that one. So
no.
I do have to ask, you guys were honored as Incisal Edge 40 under 40. How does that work? Like where do they, like, who is Incisal Edge? I think it's a magazine, right? Or
Benco is the somewhat large East Coast distributor. They're not as popular out on our side of the country, but it's their magazine, their publication. And as far as the selection goes, I believe, and you get nominated by. I think I know who nominated us technically, because it was a previous recipient of the award or whatever, but
cool.
It was just a classmate of ours. But I don't know exactly what else goes into the criteria, and I know.
No,
I'm sure they got a lot of
that it was just cool. It was on the website, and it's one of those like, oh wow, like that sounds really awesome. Like, way to go, guys.
Yeah,
it was pretty fun.
It was a lot of fun, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, we flew.
What did they do?
So we flew to New York City, and we had a little photo shoot where they style you and they dress you, and with there were it was over a weekend, so we met some other dentists there who were also getting the award, and then you do an interview for the publication. So it's just kind of a really fun. We felt kind of spoiled and pampered a little bit, which is not something that you go into dentistry thinking you're ever going to have a weekend where somebody does your hair and makeup and dresses you up and takes pictures of you. So it was really fun, and we felt special.
Really cool. No, and it's something awesome that you can put on the website. And so Wondrous is building some landing pages for me, websites for shared practices, website for my practices here in Indiana. And they were asking, like, what organizations and memberships and all of that do you have? And that's the kind of thing that they like dig out of you to help build your authority and showcase what you can do, and really create a website that's reflective of you and who you are, rather than just the stamp. Here's another copy of this
exactly
website.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anybody else's, even though they have far more clients than they did when we initially signed up with them.
Yeah.
And they're doing really, really well. But that's what stood out, was that it wasn't everything was unique to the practice, to who those people were or are, or who those dentists are. And
totally. I was going to ask about reviews. Do you guys do anything in office or have any software or anything to help remind patients and ask patients to give you reviews?
Yeah, so we used to do it straight through RevenueWell. There was like an email or something you could send to patients. But then we talked to Laura Maley again from the Wondrous, asking, do you have anybody that you recommend? Because we were wanting to build our online presence in that way as well. And we ended up using, she had a couple of recommendations, and we ended up using a company called Best Local Reviews. I think they're out of Hawaii, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. So we've been using them for maybe a couple of years. And I think, maybe a lot of the review, I know there's a lot of different companies that do those sort of services now, but I thought it was unique in that they really emphasize having the conversation and asking the patient, is it okay if I text you or email you this link to leave us some feedback. Because I was just kind of like randomly blasting people with emails if I thought they liked us at the beginning. And they said, no, get there, ask them. Because then it also holds them accountable a little bit. You're having that conversation. They're telling you, yes, they'll do it. And so then we can send that to them. And then what I think is really unique and interesting is that the company then sends them a couple days later, I don't know the timeline, well, if they don't leave one, it'll send them an email or a text that says, hey, thanks for offering to leave us some feedback. We know you're busy. We noticed you didn't have a chance. We know you're busy. Don't even worry about it. We'll catch you next time. But thank you anyway. And it's a reminder, but it's also like letting them off the hook at the same time. But then people will do it. It's really interesting to me, the wording.
It's reverse psychology. It's like, hey, I know you didn't get a chance to leave us a review. We still love you. That's okay. Yeah. We'll see you next time. And they're like, oh yeah, crap, I meant to do that. Yeah. And they go and do it.
Yeah, it's so smart. Hilarious. It's so smart.
That's really funny. I like, it's interesting how little things like that, you tweak just one little piece of like, we'll do one follow-up, but it's like not obnoxious. Mm-hmm. It's like a forgiving follow-up. And all of a sudden that generates more reviews than the first one in the first place.
Yeah, because that's the tough thing about reviews for me is that I hate asking people, it's cringy for me. I don't want to annoy people. I don't want to burden them. I don't want them to think like, that's all I care about is the review and all that. So we found a way to do it that feels, and we don't ask everybody, obviously. We found a way to do it that still sits well with us. And it's worked out because we see, I think we have a fair amount of Google reviews, which I think has helped grow the practice as well, because people see that obviously. And we try to keep up with them, at least so we have a few more each month.
Yeah, you're at 173 5-star reviews, so you're in like a solid 5.0, not like a 4.0 or like a,
there's one 4-star one on there. That's it.
It's okay. I just found yesterday, I was looking at our Facebook page, a review of a patient who basically said that I am awful, the new dentist who purchased the practice. I'm going to read this. This makes too good of podcast content here. And I don't think I saw this patient, ironically. I have someone who's here on Friday, and so I didn't even get the chance to offend this patient. I'm sure she would have left the same review if I had seen her from this post. One second. Hold on. This is just too good. This dentist sold his practice and didn't bother to tell his patients. This office previously made a deal with me on a partial, and now they won't honor it. This place is highly unethical. I do not recommend the new dentist. He has zero bedside manner, is judgmental, condescending, and not willing to be accommodating nor helpful. I am very disappointed in this entire practice. I will never return and tell the referrals I've sent not to go back as well. What a joke. Way to lose business.
Whoa.
So in some context here, I bought a denture practice, and dentures and partials, it's just a different patient base. And this isn't like raving fan, like hygiene patients who are loyal to the practice. It's like they're with you until they're not, and then they're pretty frustrated really quick. So I knew what I was getting myself into, but that was like the first one. And luckily, I feel like I have a little bit more than zero bedside manner. And we'll just respond positively and hope it gets buried with good reviews. But
we had one, I think, pretty bad one at one point that I was able to resolve with the person, and they took it down, and she's still a patient. It's a special relationship. And then maybe another like average one on Yelp, I think. But we just had one situation once, and luckily got it taken care of.
That can be a little scary, and that it's kind of weird when patients hold that like power over you of like, if you don't make me happy, I will leave you a nuclear bad review. It kind of changes the relationship a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, cool. Well, it sounds like you have gone through the journey of buying a solid practice with good patients, a good team, and now you've modernized it and just done all the right things by hooking up with Wonderist and building your SEO, trying out different things over time and finding what works for you guys. Is there any advice that you would give before we wrap up to other dentists who are kind of in a similar acquisition process of trying to grow a practice? Either be patient or be more aggressive or change things sooner, or, all of those things. But what would you say? Dustin, we'll start with you.
I mean, if it's before you've even selected a practice purchase, it's my biggest advice is to find one where the dentist that's leaving has the same philosophy as you, has a similar background as you. When you walk in, you're just a younger version of that guy that's retiring. Because if it's not, and it's just a completely different thing, you're gonna lose staff, you're gonna lose patients. It's we were lucky enough. He was also a Bruin. He graduated from UCLA. He went into the Air Force after
Nice.
dental school. It was very, very similar to our story. There were just two of us, so it took more to grow it and everything like that. But I think that was kind of the biggest thing as far as, or not the biggest thing, but a big part of the success of the transition and everything for us. So
Nice. Emily, what would you say?
I agree with what Dustin was saying. And also, when we met him, I still think this is one of the best things about when we found this practice is, I mean, we could just tell that it was a good, honest person. I mean, I really just felt like I could trust him immediately. Like, unfortunately, from working, like we said earlier, in like 9-10 different dental practices before we bought this practice, we had seen a lot of things all over the spectrum of practices, some that we wanted to take aspects into our practice, and some that I was like, I can't believe this is going on. I can't even come back tomorrow. But so we just knew, I mean, we could just tell that he was a good, honest person, and that's really what we were looking for, because you can get into some, I mean, because when you buy the practice, you don't know what you're getting into sometimes, and you don't want to get into anything that's shady or weird. So, yeah. And the other thing, I think not making too many changes right away really helped us. I mean, we didn't lose a single staff member when we bought the practice. Everybody stayed, and I think part of that has to do with how we handled the transition. We knew that we needed them. We didn't enter the practice like, hey, we're the bosses now. You're going to listen to us. We're going to change everything. We want to do it this way. We were like, you are a vital part of this team. We need you. We can't do this without you. Actually, we're going to learn from you. We want you to teach us about these patients, about this practice, because this is their practice too. And I think they sensed that. We treated them with respect and grew with them. We tried to be on the same level with them to a certain extent. And I think it paid off for us, because the patients, I could hear them asking the hygienist about us in the other room. The patients are asking them about us, and the staff had our back the whole time because we had their back, So I think that paid off a lot. And then the other thing I would say, as far as picking a company to do website SEO, all that, is don't just go for the cheapest one. Don't try to save a buck if you can help it. If you're able to invest a little more in the website company, the SEO, your marketing company, I think initially we went with the big corporate company because it was cheaper, and that's what we thought we could afford at the time. And that's all maybe we could afford at the time. But by figuring out, can we spend a little more, invest a little more in growing our practice, by going with a, we called it like a boutique sort of marketing company, because they were small when we started with them. And it paid off big time, by doing that.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate having both of you on the show. This has been a lot of fun, and shared practices. One of the things that I love the most is just more journeys, more stories, more data points, because this is the kind of journey that you usually only go through once or twice in your life, and it's hard to kind of piece together like, okay, do I change everything as soon as I come in, or do I cheap out on this, or do I spend more in this area? And so your story is going to provide just another data point of like, okay, this worked for them in this market. Maybe I should try that out. Maybe I should talk with Wondrous. Maybe I should do these things. So thank you guys for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Awesome. Okay, well, we will talk with you all next week on the Shared Practices podcast.